Hey, what's up guys, Mashine here, come back with a brand new video for you guys. Today we're going to be going over the 5 most likely outcomes of the current market and current game right now, talking about what updates could potentially do and what the specific market implications are going to be because of it. Now, these are not listed in any specific order, but there's definitely going to be some more important things as we reach the end of the video, so I suggest you stick along. You can learn more about those in just a quick second after a word from our sponsor, Skinport. Today's video is sponsored by Skinport. Now, Skinport is a super quick and easy way to pick up some brand new skins. Now, if you're looking to buy on the website, it's going to be completely free. There's no buyer's fee, and if you're looking to sell, it's only going to be 12%, which is a small price to pay for being 100% secure. Now, the reason I go with Skinport is because they've got a 4.9 out of 5 on Trustpilot with 10,000 reviews, over 400,000 skins on the site, but the biggest thing is they're able to cash out to your local currency completely seamlessly. Combine that with the fact they've got skins so much cheaper than the Steam community market, and there's no reason not to. Make sure to check them out with the top link in the description or the pinned comment. Let's hop on into it. Let's start off with what's probably one of the most obvious things, and that's potentially a Source 2 update. Now, I'm not a big hyper on Source 2. If you've watched my channel, you know I don't really like when people kind of hype up Source 2 because I think overall it's going to be a great improvement for the game, but in content form, it's not going to be bringing a ton of things like people expect it to because they've been hyped up to believe. Now, I do want to mention there's been a ton of evidence come out about Source 2 potentially being there. We've seen so many different map updates and coding things that I don't really understand to the fullest, but I can tell you that there's a lot of information about Source 2, which is almost what we see with an operation usually. There's usually some sort of leak or data mine that comes in before a big update for CSGO because it's just so hard to keep hidden, and that's basically what we're seeing right now for Source 2. Now, the biggest thing that would happen because of Source 2, honestly, in my opinion, is we could see the entire market go up just because we could see the player count go up. Honestly, there's not a whole lot that I think Source 2 is going to do for the overall market other than potentially raise it up because there's more people interested into the game. Now, talking about the other thing that's probably quite obvious and on so many people's mind is an operation. Now, an operation could have some very important market impacts, but honestly, it comes down to if we're going to see an operation or not. We're seeing so many people come out and say that they don't believe there's going to be an operation, or an operation is much further away than most people think, and there's definitely some evidence to support that. We haven't seen, like I mentioned, any evidence or data mines to suggest that an operation is even somewhat close, other than the fact that we're working on the past precedent. We've seen an operation 3 years in a row for the last couple months of the year, so people are working on that hypothesis and saying that must mean an operation is coming, and they're taking any evidence to suggest that it could potentially be there and trying to spin it to sound like an operation is more likely when it's really not. Now, an operation could have some very interesting actual market effects because we've seen some cases like the breakout case already have a dip and have kind of recovered for the most part at this point, that it's very interesting if we're going to see another dip perhaps when an operation rolls around. You can see here that the case market was very consistent until it had that dip, and now it's pretty much recovered back to the point it was sitting at before. So the fact that an operation could come around, I don't know specifically how large this dip is going to be, considering this is the most preparation people have ever had coming into an operation. They know that there's going to most likely be a dip, and they have been told for months that this is their buying opportunity, which I think in turn has kind of led to that dip we talked about with the breakout case, but also kind of led to people being so ready for this dip that I don't know how large it's actually going to be. Now, the third outcome is that there's going to be nothing, and I think this is one that's definitely been growing in likelihood. We've seen a lot of evidence to suggest we're not going to be seeing an operation. Well, obviously all of that could potentially be wrong. We haven't seen anything to suggest really much for any update coming very soon. We've seen Source 2 rumors for the past couple years, so the fact is nothing could potentially happen, which would actually be very interesting. It's a lot of topics that are going to come up in the next month or two that people are overlooking, and it's going to be very interesting to see how the market reacts. We've seen things like Christmas and Chinese New Year play a pretty significant impact into the Steam market, and the thing is, if we don't have an operation going on during those times, what are the impacts going to be? Could we see 15% increases in many different items because there is just so many buyers during this time? We know that consumer spending goes up in December, and therefore it's definitely a very good possibility we could see nothing happen, and yet player counts are going to continue on rising, and we're going to see prices rise along with that. Talking about things that have been rising in likelihood, honestly, in my opinion, I think the fact is we could potentially see a brand new case, which is something I haven't really thought about for a while. If we want to look at the past, usually we've seen about 2 to 3 cases come out a year, one of which is usually an operation case. But if we're not going to see an operation case, do you consider the fact that we could potentially see a case, just a normal case, fill in that spot during the kind of rotation? Now, there's a couple big impacts that obviously come with this one. First one is the active duty or the active rotation for cases. Now, this one's a little bit interesting because there is a high likelihood one of these cases would be pushed out, but there is also the chance that these cases could remain the same and we could just add a 6th case. The non-prime drop pool had 6 cases in it, and it's not something that's too uncommon to see. We can also tell that the public interest is quite high because we're seeing cases like the fracture case have these big large peaks, which you can see with the graph here, not all that uncommon. We're seeing maybe 1 or 2 of these every month, which is very interesting considering this is an active duty case, and logically it at best should be keeping its price point. So it's interesting to see, and honestly I could definitely see Valve doing this considering we talked about consumer spending being high during this time, and they want to capitalize off of that considering they know how poor that Rio is going to produce once that sale rolls around. Another thing I want to throw in there is the fact that we have seen the clutch case fall to number 3 behind the 2 newest cases released also does provide another incentive for Valve to release another case. It's crazy that we're not even seeing clutch at number 1, but at number 3 shows a lot of interest for brand new cases for the community. Now, the last thing is not necessarily one that I consider super likely to happen, but it's very interesting. Talking about another weapon update, we see the M4A1S damage drop-off has gone absolutely crazy, and when you look at the market for the M4A4, you can see that the price is obviously up significantly, but I want you to look at the M4A1S prices as well. You can see both of these items actually have a dip, and they're kind of on the rise right now, which is a very interesting pattern considering both of these are kind of competing with each other, which is definitely interesting. And it's even more interesting if we want to look at the pro scene. And if you look at these graphs here starting from the oldest and slowly moving to the newest, you can see that the M4A4 really doesn't have much of a foothold. You can look at the newest one here and see that there is a small portion of people using the M4A4, which on the graph is produced as the M4A1, not the one with the silencer. And if we want to look at Rio, it's pretty much the same as the majority of these graphs, meaning that not too much has changed in the pro scene as of yet for this actual weapon. Now, I don't specifically know what this means. It could be something as small as raising the M4A1S back up to 3100. Honestly, it's a little interesting. We haven't seen the AWP have really any movement, but that was kind of to be expected considering there's not really a good replacement for the AWP. But that is pretty much all I have for today, guys. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.